All right. Thank you,คุณแมวนะคะคุณ Monsinee. I want to do a short introduction for those of you who are not familiar with her. So Dr. Monsinee, affectionately known as Khun Maew, is a visionary CEO of Rab Venture Group of companies. With a stellar career spanning over a decade, she's held leadership roles in global giants like Google, Amazon, Deloitte, and Accenture. And now an accomplished entrepreneur, Khun Maew brings a wealth of experience from navigating structure, stability of corporate life to embracing the dynamics and innovation world of startups. So in this webinar, she's going to be sharing her transformative journey from corporate executive to a trailblazing entrepreneur. She's delved into the stark contrast between corporate and startup environment, and she is going to shed light on how to leverage both worlds to unlock your true potential. So please, give a warm welcome to Maew.
Thank you, Khun Nui. Hi, everyone. So basically, before we go on, let me brief you about what I'm doing at the moment at Raventure. It's a new setup. I just recently established this company this year, but it's been planned a few years back. So can you, Sky, can you show the slide of that I prepared? Just a little bit. Okay. Well, before Raventure, then should I talk about myself? I think let's go briefly. Yeah, I think Khun Nui already mentioned, that I have experience in many places, mostly in consulting and global tech firms. And now I'm starting my own company. So let's go to Raventure profile. So Raventure is a venture builder. Venture builder, some people call it venture studio. So basically, our mission is to empowering startups in Thailand to be both financially and technically strong, and in order for them to grow and expand, geographically, not just within Thailand. So go on, please. So we help them, not just a matter of fundraising, not just seeking the fund, but we help them in terms of like dress up, their appearance in order for them to grow geographically. That includes like looking at their tech stack, and how it can be upgraded, to meet the best practice and meet the investors' demand. And also, we look at like what else, where else they can go, in terms of like expanding their market beyond Thailand. Current focus, in our portfolio is in MarTech, marketing technology and travel technology. While this, actually these two are like the key areas in Thailand. Thailand right now is big in tourism, and it's like one of the highest hope area in Thailand in terms of being economic wealth. So that's why my area, this is one of my area of focus. The other one is MarTech, which is like, I think there are a lot of skillful talented engineers in Thailand in this area. So that's in my radar right now. Next year, going forward, I'm looking into expanding into AI and some of the dev house. I've been talking to a few, and there are good potential ones. So let's see next year. I think we might expand our portfolio into 5-6 more companies. And there is another area where I'm doing in terms of sustainability projects. I help develop property and land, and in order for this area to achieve sustainability goal, and also like, for example, like carbon neutral and things like that, So yeah, that's my side interest. So this is one of our star in the portfolio. This is a MarTech company that it's one of the star in our portfolio. So Predictive, it's been in the industry for 12 years. It's not really seed in a seed stage. It's more like a Series A stage right now. It's the only Google marketing platform partner in Thailand. So it's Thailand the one and only and leading Google marketing platform partner, and they are about to launch a very interesting product, in terms of platform as a service. and all the large enterprises in Thailand are their customers, including 6 top banks and all 3 telcos. Next, please. The other one is Monatech. Monatech is in travel tech. Monatech partner with Spouse Social, which is a global firm in terms of market insights, market analytics, and then some other global OTAs. And we provide the insights and analytics on the digital tourism. And also Monatech is about to launch a platform for medical tourism in Thailand. Next, please. So I mentioned about sustainability project. This is like my side area. It's nothing relating to digital. Maybe some area in terms like smart meter. Carbon neutral insight. But anyway, this is more like a investment of the physical investment in terms of building sustainability projects and support program development relating to the sustainability. So right now we are working on some of the residential and commercial property development in some of the islands in Thailand. So that's it. That's what I'm doing. Khun Nui, let's move on.
That's a lot. I just realized I was muted because it says you need to unmute yourself. So you're a busy lady. So let's go back to when our conversation initially started, which is about leaping from corporate into a startup. And you said you kind of got started already a little bit before. Can you fill us in a little bit more about that? Like if somebody is kind of like in those shoes, starting to think about it, what are they needing to think about?
Well, when I talk about like starting few years, it's more like a planning and like keeping the radar out, like looking around, what's out there, and talking to some of the startups. Since I was young, I always into investment, that's like managing my portfolio, that's like part of my hobby, and when at one time you invest in like stocks, mutual funds, right, equities, and then when it comes to the area where you gain knowledge, you have some insights in industry, and you want to invest in the potential startups, because it's not just about investment, it's more like contributing your knowledge, and help empowering them and help them grow based on your knowledge, based on your experience. So I focus on the startups that around me. Some of them are working with me, some of them are Google partners, some of them are AWS partner. So I talked to them and started with like just investing a little bit, but didn't get involved much with them. But then when I, when I'm no longer in the corporate world, so I can be more focused, and I put 100% of myself, into them, not just the financial, but more in terms of the coaching, and guidance for them. So I think it's fascinating to work with startups, and each one has unique challenges, and whether limited resources, constraints, financial obstacles, So I think it's a good learning, working with startups, and for me, I learn from them also. I think it's a mutual learning.
Yeah, every relationship is, whether you learn to do or not do. I didn't figure that out for a long time. Even when you watch somebody's like, oh, you can learn from that person, even if they're screwing up. You're learning things not to do. Oh, okay. That's why I should watch it a little bit, right? So you said you were into investment, and so was that like your own investment, or were you crowdfunding for that, or was your family always into that? Because that's quite exceptional, because I don't meet many women like coming into financial literacy so early.
Oh, because I think I'm a hardworking single mom. So that's a mandate that I need to do, to save for my children's future. So yeah, I started saving since I was like in mid-20s, Even when I was in the US, I studied in the US, I also invest in the IPO stocks and make money from the IPO. Yeah, that was like more than 20 years back. And I at that time there were a lot of like .coms company, and like it's like a bubble, it's like a IPO bubbles. And yeah,
crash.
Right.
Did you lose any money in there?
No, I got out before the crash.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Good sense. Okay. Maybe
Yeah.
like another time we'll talk about, learning to invest because my family comes from property investors. I kind of like did mock investments, like, virtual ones on for stocks and stuff, but I haven't got into it. So I could learn a little bit from you on this side. Let's come back to leaping from corporate into a startup. And you said you always like startups. What is it about startups that you like the top three things for you?
I think when you come from the big corporate, you learn a lot from them. It's, I think my position, maybe they look at me like their mentor or their coach, or their advisor, but there are a lot of things I learned from them and things I've never done before, like there's so many constraints, like in terms of like how to maintain the cash flow, in the business, and if the client like delay the payment, how can they sustain like month after month, that's something that is like I have to learn from them. And each startup had to have different technique because they have different funding sources as well. And there are also another most interesting areas in terms of dealing with working with startup is in the fundraising, because I've been investing, but I've never fundraised. I've never like really into the fundraising. But right now, I'm gaining valuable insights, into like different fundraising stages, and in terms of in-depth valuation techniques, and there are like different stages of fundings, and things I've never dealt with before, and it's a lot to learn in this area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I imagine when you're playing with other people's money, right? You really have to know it from their point of view, whether it's, the VCs or the equity partners or however you're doing, the process. I'm sure there's probably more than those two ways of
Yeah.
fundraising, like you were saying. How do you get different sources to stay afloat if you have customers that aren't paying you on time? Okay, so it's interesting that, so all of this, big tech startups, and then now you focus on venture studio, and then you're investing in these startups. When you were making the transitions, what were some of the challenge that you faced when you were adjusting, thinking, did you set like a date? Okay, this is the day I'm gonna turn in my resignation. Can you kind of like give us the playbook on that? How you did it?
Challenge for me or for the startups that I work
No,
with?
the challenge for you
Okay.
transitioning from corporate into startup, right? Like, did you have already a playbook in your mind? Like, okay, I get my bonus. This is the day I resign, and this is when I absolve all of my shares and liquidate them and put them in my bank account. And this is how I'm gonna, what were some of the steps? What were some of the planning and the challenges that you faced?
Well, 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 imagine like this, you've been working with this huge company, right? And everything's super organized and you have your own little desk, your own little job. Everybody knows exactly what they are doing. So it's like a well-oiled machine. And then bam, you jump into startup, suddenly you got to do everything from getting the words out to even designing a letterhead for my invoice, and even things I hate the most, like accounting, but the trade-off is worth it. I think, all that, everybody knows, like, they're like all over the place, it's like you have to learn everything, you have to do everything by yourself. But then, I think in today's world, it's easier because there are a lot of outsource. You don't like accounting, you can outsource to accounting firm. You do have extra account. You outsource to the payroll firms, and you have these legal advisors. It's like I tend to become the most lean company, and try not to like carry much of the burdens, and trying to let things do the tasks, that's the specialized tasks, but and then I focus more in terms of as the essence of my business. And I think, in in some way, like me being a startup and working with a startup also, but talking about me, like I think I feel more, I enjoy the agile and dynamic environment, and I enjoy my own autonomy. And I think that's where the creativity can flourish, because this autonomy, ownership, and I feel like enormous opportunity to make a real impact, to make a difference, and also make an impact to other people's life, where, I support startups, so I at least, I can make impact to them. While in corporate worlds, I think it provide like certain structure, but also stability, it's a trade-off, right? So you trade off your own stability, um, but they can sometimes, like, being in a corporate for so long, it can stifle your individual expression. And it also limit the scope of your contributions. I think you can do like this, but like you can do much more. But in your corporate, in the corporate world, it's like you are framed to do certain things, and you should not go beyond that, otherwise you step into other people's toe. So yeah, so all those bureaucratic ladders, that can make your life difficult. But with your own company, you can create your preferred atmosphere. Yeah, bro. So I would say like the risks, and there's risk and give, but I think if you know how to do the risk management, and then you took the right approach, to manage the risks involved in launching a startup, that's okay. I think that's a, I would not go back, to be in the corporate world. I think it's a good trade-off.
Let's talk about the risk. What were some of the things that were on the top of your mind when you thought, all right, I'm gonna venture out on my own? Did you have like a set date, a set time? I have some entrepreneurs, and I think we mentioned this in our initial briefing calls. It's like, okay, I'm leaving this, not a corporate, but a kind of like a medium-sized enterprise.
Mm.
And he says, okay, I'm leaving, and I only have three, and I'm gonna launch my company, and I'm giving myself 3 months. And I went, it's like, okay. Even for me, I gave myself a year, but I also saved up the money for it too, right?
I see.
Yeah. Because I didn't really know, but I thought, oh, at least 1 year, to really try it in 1 full year, then you kind of feel the whole 365 days. So to you, what were some of the risks that you were thinking and needing to manage?
I'm more into your approach, in terms of planning ahead, but I believe some people don't have that choice. Something happens, some turmoil in their corporate environment that makes them leave, suddenly, and that also happened to other people. But for me, I do some sort of planning ahead, like where the area that I would go into, and trying to familiarize myself with startup ecosystem in Thailand. Also saving up some money, but when you talk about risk, like go back, when you talk about risk, like, okay, when you should leave, or you stay like 3 months longer, 6 months longer, or I think life is full of risks, Khun Nui. It doesn't matter if you're climbing the corporate ladder or building your own empire. There's always a chance that things could go sideways. The key is you see those challenges as opportunity for them to learn and grow. So if you're really sure like what you want to do, what your passion is, I would say like go for it, because one of the risks is like staying stuck also. I think it's one of the risks for me. I consider that like not really good for my, for my path. So for me, I think I think I'm very open to the change, and I think you trying to look like analyze, all the angles, and you see that, okay, there's a risk, that things that you might unforeseen. But if you feel like problem solving is your daily workout, it's like the more you flex your muscles, right, the stronger you get and the better equipped you are, then you can handle whatever comes, your way, so. And in my job as a venture builder, most risks, are associated with choosing wrong people. That means like investing in the wrong place, because I'm the venture builder, right? I have to invest my resource, my financial, skill, whatever, my time. So all the effort, would be put into like one company. But if you choose the right company, I mean that's good, But if you choose the wrong people, wrong company, the wrong startups, some people, um, you know, I think some people are very good in presenting, like when you meet when they meet you, like, okay, they want to do this, they want to do that, but I think it's best to be a little bit skeptical, when you meet the startups, and but I'm not like some of the people, I'm not like them, because some people say that attitude uh works better than skills. Some people think they value attitudes more than skills, but like if they see like Thai startup are courageous, they have confidence, and they are very well articulated, they can present their idea very well, they can talk to the big audience. But I don't think it's that essence only. I think they're much more into that. That's why I'm not like I don't always get like I would say that I'm not being impressed like easily, when at the first meeting, because for me both attitudes and skills are equally important. And if you have the idea but you lack execution, then it doesn't matter. But I think the thing that is even more important than attitude and skills, what I think it is disciplines. So I value discipline most. And when you meet people like first or second time, you wouldn't know like how disciplined they are, right? You know that they are great speaker, they are the great presenter, they might have the good functional skills, they might have good technical skill, but you don't know that's a discipline, until like you deep dive into it, and that's always tell myself, if I invest in a wrong place, then I would end up in the wrong, wrong people, and waste my effort and resources. So discipline, skills and attitude, it all three have to come together. If something like lack, or something like underrepresented, I consider it red flags. Yeah. And I think the people that I work with also need to embrace change, just like me, because my job is about shaking things up, right? I come to help the companies transform, to turn things around, and that means change is inevitable. So they have to perceive change, as positive as me. So if they're stuck in their own ways, we're not gonna get very far.
So I hear you based on like professional skills and mindset. You're saying you're not just, somebody with a positive attitude, but you got to have the right skills to execute, right?
And
And then, and then you got to be disciplined. And is that something that people are born with, or is that something you need to like practice? What would you say, having spent a bit of time with some of the startups, and seeing the ones that you can kind of project like, okay, this one is really good, is really growing and they're growing in a good way. How does, is it nature or nurture, or is it just drive, or what do you foresee in that, in your experience?
I think it's all about the experience. When you get to know the startup, you need to understand where they come from. They're just like a fresh grad and then starting a company, or have they worked with like corporates before, or what kind of roles that they played in the past. I think yeah, so it's more like a journey, that journey. You have to understand like their journey, where they grow, how they evolve, and become their own boss today. And that can tell a little bit about their attitudes. Of course, I think functional skills, it can learn along the way, it can be learned, along the way. If you can take course, you can like hire tutors. But attitude is something where I think it's sort of handed since you were young, very, very young, attitude, like being confident, being in a positive mindset, having the growth mindset, something like that. It also like, I think it came from home, how you're raised, how like how you work, how your friend, your friend's social environment, interact with you. And that's also something that's quite unique, to each individual. Discipline, I would say like discipline, it would come from the past experience, past work experience. I don't want to stereotype, but I think based on my little sample from people that I talk to, from the startup I talk to, the ones that are fresh grad right off from the college and then starting their own company have less discipline than the ones that, quite familiar in a structured environment, having some kind of experience in the corporate world. I think that's where you learn how to discipline, how to be transparent, how you practice good governance, something like that. And myself, I think I also learned that from the corporate world. And I've been lucky enough to work in large corporate firms, and I can also transfer this knowledge, to them, in terms of what is your usual like discipline, day-to-day discipline, and how you approach some problems, like whether like some problem is like there's no right or wrong, but how to approach it is like based on different things, like the good governance, transparency, and the product commercial fit, they're so every day, you have like a lot of decision to make, and I think from my experience, I've been lucky enough to work in both consulting and tech company as well. I think having exposure in these two worlds, consulting and technology, it has given me really well-rounded background. And in consulting, in the past, I did all kind of projects from operation and supply chain transformation to customer journey, go-to-market transformation, change management, even specific project like spectrum auctioning, 3D spectrum auctioning, or merger acquisition of two state-owned enterprise. That's like each and every project, there are always areas to learn from, and I think I think a lot of my valuable experience come from consulting, my consulting times, and and since I have background in consulting, so it's quite natural to be from consulting, transition from consulting to be a venture builder, because it's like a consulting. Also, you're consulting the startup, not the large corporate, not the government, but the startup. So it's like the same, it's same kind of skills, and having exposure to the global tech firms, having worked with them, I also get to know technology, how it actually works in the real world, and how business can use it to make money. Yeah.
You sound like someone with a very, very steep in growth mindset as part of your belief system.
Yeah.
And I agree with you about corporate, with the years that I spent in corporate. One of the things, I also learned a lot of things not to do in corporate, but some of the things that I learned how to do, which was to help me build my own companies, is learn to build systems. Because you can get very fatigued in, the day-to-day, even
Yeah.
accounting. Yeah, it's a lot of little bits of paper and a lot of little bits of numbers that you gotta like audit and
Exactly.
cross-check.
Yes.
And then you got, there's so many steps to doing the accounting. I think the Thai system is even more complex than the US system. Because there's more filing, and then there's still requirement for paper in the Thai system.
Things, right? Of that.
Yeah. Whereas like we can do a lot of e-filing and different stuff in the US.
Right.
So
Right.
in the entrepreneurial success formula, you had defined your entrepreneurial vision, the growth mindset, I feel you covered, and then the other one was financial strategies. So let's talk about the entrepreneurial vision. Like when you were leaving the corporate world, you knew already that, okay, I want to come into being a venture builder. Can you share, like, what was your vision with that? Like, how am I going to get the money to help build these guys? Or, how many other people am I going to work with as part of this, providing this service? Can you talk about the entrepreneurial vision for yourself and what other people should think about when they're planning for themselves?
Well, first thing first, I think, for anybody who wants to be entrepreneur, you got to do some soul searching, and think about what gets you fired up and what kind of mark you want to leave in the world, and that's something that I often ask myself, when I work in a corporate world, and sometimes like I get pushed sideways, it's like, and then I have to come back and relook really what is my passion, what really, what really I want to do, and what kind of, what kind of things that I it would get me spark, would spark me. I think when, along the way, I think if you have a chance, please revisit that, and then, once you know like what really spark you, and then you can take stock what you're good at, what your superpowers, and maybe what come naturally to you, and then find where your passions and your skill line up, with the world needs. Then you have the passion, you have the skills, and then what the world needs, some sort of line it up. That's where the real goal is. And sometimes you need to experiment things around also, and I don't think you should be afraid to try that out, try different stuff out, get feedbacks, and maybe tweak your ideas, as you go. It's all about learning and evolving, and it's not always easy, but turning your passion into a business is always the ultimate reward if you succeed in that. um yeah. And you asked about me, right? How I strategize my approach, right? Once I have this mindset, I think funding, everybody asks about funding, right? Where the money coming from, whether it's personal saving, loans, investors, I think each source of funding has pros and cons. If you borrow other people money, then you have to worry about how and when to pay them back, and then your personal saving also, you worry about your own stability. So there are like pros and cons. But for me, I think I'm a little bit lucky, because I spent 25 years working in a corporate world, so and do some investment, so along the way I have some personal saving, and it's true that I come from a business. My family have their own business, and I come from a big family, but that doesn't mean I was given everything. My parents worked really hard, and they taught me to do the same. So it's not about financial wealth that I inherited from them, but something more valuable, more like a strong mind to create my own success and abundance. And yeah, I learned from the best, my parents, and I try to be a good role model for my kids also. As a single parent, with two kids, of course I worry about my financial stability, but I think as long as we live a simple life, we have no demand for luxuries, you know and just like my parents taught me, we have to value the money, we have to put all the efforts, and then work hard. That's how I taught. I've been teaching my girls also, that money doesn't come easy, and they have to work for what they want. So yeah. So my 16-year-old got a full IB scholarship, in an international school, and my 14-year-old, she won last year. She won a national robotics Olympic competition. So they both ambitious and hardworking. That's how I've always been taught. So don't be afraid. I mean, it's a journey, and then okay, you might be a bit stiff on yourself. When you start your own business, then don't trying to take things realistically. Don't overspend. Don't overhire people.
Yeah. Or
Hope
you
that helps.
can use, yes, that's a really good advice. I find
Yeah.
it kind of funny about how you talk about, like what is your passion and thing, when I was in the agency world, working, well, I was actually the employee of MBK, but my boss loaned me out to JWT. So I would sit in MBK's office around 2 days a week, and 3 days a week I was sit in JWT's office. For those who don't know who JWT is, it's J. Walsh Thompson. It's the advertising company.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
yes.
one of the top 5. So he loaned me out to go write, comms campaign to go with their advertising as part of launches and stuff. So that's one of the things, one of the big skill set that I bring into Brandnow as a company is like, understanding, okay, all the nuances of when a brand or a company is about to launch, all the different things. But I would tell you honestly, working in agency life is a grind life. And I think also working in startup, because we launch almost around 40 tech startups, and it's a grind life.
Right.
Yeah,
Understand.
it's not an 8-hour day. Some days are 16-hour days. Like yesterday, I was working on some new campaigns for 2025. I didn't go to bed until 1 a.m.
Mm. Mm.
So I was a little bit slow this morning when I woke up, but it happens. But no one's grinding me anymore, but because I lived the life for a time. But then I thought, oh, you know what? I'm never gonna do this kind of work. It's so funny. But then, like you said, you know, why don't you soul search, right? Like
Mhm.
the soul searching in yourself. And actually, the work that I really love, that's at the heart of the work that is done by agencies, not just agency itself, but most companies, any communications department or marketing department, is actually the communication.
Mm.
Is communicating, you know, truthfully, authentically, in a way that touches people, that so that
Oh.
they can remember you. And,
Mm.
you know, and for these reasons, we, you know, as a company, as a brand ourselves, we never worked with like cigarette brands. We had an offer to work with a dating site that helps married people to cheat.
I
And
see.
yeah, and we
Okay.
did, I don't know, I don't take those on. It's like, that's not the direction I want to go. And like you're a mom of two girls. I'm also a mom of two girls. I don't want
Mhm.
to take on work that at the end of the day, my company stamp's gonna be on it. And
Mm.
then later they'll see like, oh, mom says one thing. Oh, and then, you know, professionally she does something else. So they're like, I don't want to be this, I don't think it's nice when you're like a two-faced person. And I think when you become like a parent, it's not just about your life, it's about what kind of role you want to be for your next generation. That's kind
Yeah,
of, right? So you think
exactly.
about that a lot. Mm.
Yes. And I think like kids, like when they see you like working, their mom working, it's like also inspire them, and they feel like, they want to do best,
They want to
to
do
to
something. Yeah.
yeah, they want to do something to make me impressed also, Yeah.
Yeah, which is impressive. Like what you said, one of them got a scholarship and the other one won an award in robotics. So they're
Right.
working on their, you know, making their
Yeah.
mark in the world. They're not just waiting for you to hand it out for them, which is nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
My
Yes.
daughter
Thank you.
just took on a part-time job as well at
Okay.
university because she's like, okay, I don't want, you know, just a handout all the time. I want to be able to help myself. I'm like, good, good.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
yeah,
mm.
keep going. All right, so
Right.
let's talk about career transition strategies, right? Here, we put down some stuff. I think we've got only a few minutes left. Just as a reminder to those who are in the group, please, if you have any questions that you want me to ask her before we close out our webinar today, please write it in the chat and I'll ask Maew before we finish up today. So I wanted to ask about career transitioning strategies, yeah? So you talk about freelancing, balancing stability and innovation, and identifying passion. Can you go a little bit into each of these ones? Why is freelancing a good idea?
So, yeah,
Does it
that's right.
distract, you know?
It can be. It can be. It's like a test drive, but you need to really balance yourself, But the good thing is that it let you try out your business idea, and also you get a chance to build skill without quitting your day-to-day job, And it's good thing is that you can test the waters, try out your ideas. It might not work, and then you will know it before you leave the job, right? Um,
Did you do
um,
that?
I believe I know it worked. Yeah, I know it worked because my business may be different, because it's more like a managing portfolio, managing the startups, and I think I'm in the industry long enough to know who has the potential to grow, who's not, and yeah, so at least, but before I leave my job, oh, believe me, like the past year I talked to like about 20, 30 startups, potential startups, And at the end, I got only two. I got only two to start with.
Was that
Yeah.
before leaving the corporate world? You were like interviewing these startups on the
Before
side?
leaving before leaving, the discussion was very serious. Yeah. But then you cannot do anything much, until you leave the corporate world.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, I think freelancing is a test drive in some area, in certain area. For me, you can look at my partial investment, partial talking, partial of brainstorming. It can be freelancing also. But then once you know for sure, then don't waste more time. Once you know what you want to do and you really know it works, don't waste more time. You might encounter because but otherwise, you might burn yourself out. You might not be able to leave the company at all. and you will lose the opportunity to start your own. And I talk a little bit about funding, right? Some people think that, okay, if they, they already know what they want, they already talk to some people and they know it's gonna work, but they cannot leave right now. They need 6 months, 12 months, to get some more money, something like that. I think that's okay, that's a cautious approach, but let's see. I think, how much money do you need? You need to be really realistic, be careful in terms of doing the planning, maybe you don't need that much, because when you, well, think about the funding that you need. If you understand how much money you need to know how much burn rate, how fast you'll be spending, and what is your revenue projection, something like that. These all come into as an inputs of how much funding you need. So you need to do some homework, right? Do some research, what should be, what are the product that you're going to launch, how much money is gonna make you, in how many time, I mean, in what year, I mean, how many months, time frame, and what is the burn rate, what is the operating expense, each month. Then do some calculation, then exactly, like, okay, this is funding I need, then okay. I think that's all, don't stay stuck for a long time.
Can I ask you, because you said like, otherwise if you end up staying for a long time in corporate, then you might miss window. Do you think there's like an ideal age for that to happen, or it can happen at any time? You could even leave, let's say at 55 or 65 and just, or even before your retirement and then start something.
Something is about your age, but it's more like the age of the idea that you're going to do. All the ideas have ages, because if you take long, some people will do it before you. It's about time to market, especially if you are in the digital industry, like you're doing some platform, you are the digital startups. Time to market is a crucial factor. If you like, you wait 2 months, the big guys already do it, something like that, then you won't be able to compete. Then okay, you're stuck for another 3 years, trying to find other ideas. Yeah.
Right. I guess kind of like what we saw with OpenAI, right? And that was a Microsoft investment. And
Yes.
then the other ones were like scrambling. And then like even Google, maybe Google never, because I was listening to a podcast, I forget who was it, but I listened to so many, from Gary Vee to Alex Hormozy to, Seth Golden and all the great marketers, right? And they talk about how search, the future of search, they were saying anywhere between 36 months onwards that it's going to be irrelevant. In the
Right.
same way that we search on a browser, we're only going to end up talking now to our AI
Mm,
assistant, right? Because nobody, and then we're not going to be necessarily looking anymore on the screen. We're going to be
mm,
listening to it. And which is
mm,
often the case with me, because if I'm stuck in traffic, I'm usually, either listening to an audiobook or I'm talking to my phone assistant to do different things so I can keep my eyes on the road and, not get in an accident.
mm.
I want to touch on the last part, what the last 2 points here. I'm just checking if anybody, I don't see any additional questions, but we're just about to getting wrapped up. What do you think are some of the common misconceptions about starting a business?
Okay. Well, there are tons of myths, about starting a business. For example, like you, you really need to have a unique idea, you know, but no, that's not the case. Most successful business, maybe it can be just new twist on existing idea. You don't need something like unique, like, sometimes reinventing the wheel can really work, can make you success, but it's all about execution. So don't try to find like a one thing, like one true thing, one rare thing in the world. It might not happen. There might not be that. Maybe look at others, what others doing, and how can you do it better? How can you make a twist? That maybe fit. Do the right product market fit. So yeah, and also about the unique idea of product, I think that's a myth. And also some people think that you need a tons of money to start a business. That's not always true also. As I mentioned earlier, there are plenty of business that start small and boost their way up. If you know how to grow the market, how to do agile. If you are in the platform, how to do agile development, and which each state of MVP, you go through different stage of funding, you raise fund like in a different series. Then you don't have to wait until like you get like, hundred of millions, to start, yeah, it can be like something small. Maybe you have a small idea, you just do MVP and then you try it out. You have a certain group of people in your platform, then at that time you get more funding, you raise the fund, and that's how it works, in the startup world. Yeah. So doesn't have to be unique idea, doesn't have to have a lot of money. And sometimes also another myth is about like people think you can enjoy the freedom of being your own boss, you can like do everything you can, like step away, like do whatever. No, it's not like that. Actually, I starting your own business can be tons of work and responsibility, so don't underestimate, being entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think being an entrepreneur is a very self-accelerated development program. It's an
Right.
accelerated self-development program because the business can only grow as smart as you can be, or unless you hire somebody smarter than you, which you should do, and allow
Yeah.
it to happen, because some people are more visionary people and they're not operationals people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've had that conversation also with some of our startup clients, who
Mm,
came into A series and things like that, and they really dislike certain aspects of their work.
mm,
They say
yeah.
it privately, and I say, well, you don't have to be the MD. You don't have to be the CEO. You're at the
Mhm,
point now where you can maybe hire somebody to do that part, and you can
mhm,
stay on product development. For example,
mm,
like speaking of Google, right? Larry Page
mm,
and Sergey Brin, they're not the CEO of their company.
right.
They are
Mhm,
staying in the creative aspects of what they
mm,
do. So
right.
that's something, you can
Mm,
start to split it up as you grow a little bit and have a little bit of money to be able to
mm,
pay people too. And I like how you said, like, it gets phased,
right.
it gets phased.
Yeah.
I've been watching this lady. I don't know if you're familiar with her, Camille. It's Cody Sanchez. And one of the things that she talks about is like investments into boring business. So
Oh.
yeah, she's really funny. I really like her. She's very colorful, but and she came out of investment, like she's a former, JP Morgan type of gal. I think she
Mm,
was in different types of investment banking or forms of investment. I want to say at least 5 to, or maybe under 10 years or something like that. And then she became an investor, like over time, just buying
mm,
small businesses. And she talks about it like in great detail. So
right.
anybody who are interested in a franchise, like Kumail said, it doesn't have to be this unique, once in a lifetime unicorn
Right.
business idea. It could be literally just a boring business. And that's what Cody talks about all the time. And it's more about the location of your boring business.
Exactly. Yeah. I think there are always ideas to twist the existing ideas, like and you that's how it works. Like you better the idea get better, the betterment of the ideas. And that's how business evolved.
Yep. So my last
Yeah.
thing to you is, what's been the biggest reward since you got onto this journey to becoming an entrepreneur in a
My
startup?
biggest what? Sorry?
Reward
Oh, okay. My biggest reward.
for yourself or
um
professionally?
I feel like, I'm enjoying the ride, I'm joining the ride. Every day I enjoy talking to startup, and trying to help them, and sort out their challenges, my passion is to make an impact to other people's life. I said that earlier. um and I still feel like every day, every day I what I'm doing right now, I try to stay on this route, to make the impact to other people's, also to my country as well. That's why I choose the area of tourism. I choose the area of marketing technology, where our people are very good at. I choose the area of sustainability. I help develop some of the islands, into like a carbon free, carbon free, carbon neutral area. And that's my passion, and this is something I can never do if I were to stay in a corporate world.
Yes, I agree with you. Corporate, they put you. I had many suggestions for different ways that we could operate. I was always told, like, yeah, no, you're in marketing, go back to marketing. Stop talking to us about how operation can improve. But at the end, the operation impacts how we operate, right? Because there's a chain reaction throughout the entire organization. So for those who came in a little bit later, we're going to be sharing this recording on I think we have a Spotify podcast, and then later on I think we're going to choose another platform to reshare this. So if you wanted to get the full, I saw like 2 or 3 people coming in the last 5 or 10 minutes. I just wanted to let you know. I also want to thank Maew for making the time and giving us time as part of the prep of the meeting today, leading up to today's webinar, it being the last one. And so Sky, I think if we could bring back up the PowerPoint so that we can share what is coming up in January. And we also have, I think we have almost a program leading all the way up to May. If you guys have suggestions for topics and speakers, you're welcome to drop us a message on our Facebook Messenger. The team and I are in that. Sometime if you only send it to me, if I forget to look, then I don't forward it. But when it's in Messenger, most of us are part of that, so everybody can kind of see it. And again, I want to thank Khun Maew. And if you want to connect with her, this is her LinkedIn. And so yeah, keep in touch with her and watch what she's going to do next. It seems like a lot of new and exciting projects coming up, from the MarTech to the tourism and the sustainability stuff that you've got on. So can we have the next slide for January stuff?
Thank you very much, Khun Nui. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely to speak with you today. I feel like we have so much in common. I'll DM you later.
All right. Thank you.
ขอบคุณนะคะ Thank you everyone and happy holidays สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ